Man, have I been looking forward to this one. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to one of my most anticipated Bleach explanation videos, Yachiru Unohana Explained. Up to this point, the format I've tried to stick to was one close to a wiki page for the character, which I thought had good structure and would help me to cover all of my bases, but moving forward, I think I want to try a bit of a more organic approach. And who better to start that with than one of my favorite captains in all of Bleach, the first Kenpachi, Yachiru Unohana. Let's start with the beginning. The very beginning. Retsu Unohana, as we know her today, is a kind-hearted, compassionate individual who has made it her mission to help and heal those in need, with her squad, Squad 4, being driven by the sole purpose of acting as the medics of the Gotei 13. With her mom energy, Retsu has always been a woman to greet you with a smile on her face and warmth in her heart. But that wasn't always the case. Originally, she was, quote, a founding member and a part of the first generation Gotei 13, which was also regarded as the strongest. Amongst that group, she ruled as a captain of the 11th Division, and laid the foundations for what the current 11th Division is built upon, end quote. 1,000 years prior to the 1,000-Year Blood War, she was, along with Yamamoto, a member of the original, strongest 13 Court Guard squads. And as the captain of the 11th Division, she is the standard whom all the battle-crazy, blood-starved warriors of the 11th Division aspire to. Opposite to her current demeanor, she was a beast, one of the worst mass-murdering serial killers the Soul Society had ever seen, whose mission it was to destroy everyone and everything in her wake and kill anyone she could reach with her blade. In short, while she has mom energy now, she used to have your son calls me mommy energy, and a fucking reveal that was, probably one of the craziest plot twists in the entire series. Throughout the series leading up to the reveal of her identity, she was little more than a background character that sometimes made a meaningful appearance, contribution, or impact on the story, but the more observant eye will notice the invisible weight her presence carries. Take for instance the fact that Squad 11, her old squad, bullies Squad 4 for being weaklings, yet remain terrified of her. The closest thing to a squad of crazed killers resembling the ruthlessness of the original Gotei 13, and they fear her. When Aizen first revealed himself a traitor, he destroyed Toshiro. But upon crossing paths with Unohana, a significant factor of keeping the Gotei 13 alive with her healing, giving him motive to end her right then and there, his immediate response was to flee. In Hueco Mundo, the Exequias approach this unassuming woman with kind eyes, yet flee when she stands between them and Chad. Even Ichigo in the Garganta, on the way to the fake Karakura, is somewhat intimidated by her. These moments by themselves can be explained away as Aizen not wanting to be inconvenienced, the Exequias not wanting to engage a captain-level enemy, Ichigo just being intimidated by Unohana as comedic relief, but altogether we begin to notice a pattern, that the few times Unohana appears in the face of an enemy or opposition to her desires, they always back down. They never choose to engage. This is because she is, prior to the events of the 1,000-Year Blood War, quite possibly one of the top 3 strongest captains in the entire Gotei 13. The name Yachiru was one she gave herself in reference to her knowledge, her mastery, of all sword styles and flows in existence, with Yachiru meaning 8,000 styles. Retsu and Yachiru are so massively different in how they are outwardly perceived, one wouldn't be remiss in assuming they are two separate people or two different identities of somebody with DID. But as we know, they are two sides of the same coin. Now, upon the first appearance of Retsu Unohana in chapter 81 of the manga, she seems plain, ordinary, certainly not as eye-catching as the likes of Sajin, Kenpachi, Mayuri, or the captain we're most familiar with by this point, Byakuya. She seems on the younger side of middle-aged compared to her peers, and doesn't seem to stand out aside from her interesting hairstyle, her long hair being braided in front of her chest, yet not only is she the oldest of the captains and among the oldest in that room alongside the head captain, she's also one of the most well-respected individuals in that room as well. Despite her initial appearance, nothing about this woman is plain or ordinary. Her hairstyle, one of the only things that stands out about her, is given major plot significance when we later find out that it covers the scar she received while fighting a child Kenpachi Zaraki, with her covering the scar because it aches as a constant reminder of her sin of not being strong enough to allow Kenpachi to mature into the warrior she knows he can become. It was for this very reason that she abandoned the blade, as no opponent could hope to give her the same level of a fight Kenpachi did, and she likely did not believe she deserved to take up a blade since she should have died while passing the title of Kenpachi on to Zaraki. In her mind, the last time she should ever draw her blade is to finish that fight and pass on the name. As for her being one of the most well-respected individuals in the Gotei 13, while it's believable that she's respected due to her kind nature and her being a healer, we come to understand that the likes of Jushiro and Shunsui, two of the senior-most captains, look up to her due to both her age and her power. That power is so great, she was the first Soul Reaper to ever receive the title of Strongest, Kenpachi, the same title she made it her life's mission to pass on to a worthy successor in the form of a completely unrestricted Kenpachi Zaraki. Yet in spite of all that, Retsu Unohana operates in the exact opposite way to Yachiru Unohana, healing friend and foe and being caring towards all. Retsu heals and helps and cares for others, while Yachiru destroys anything that breathes, with the only healing she did being to keep herself alive, to fight for longer, and to keep worthy opponents alive long enough to derive enjoyment from. That was her entire purpose for learning the healing arts from Zero Division member Tenjiro Kurinji in the first place. She sought out his healing techniques, peerless in the Soul Society, just to allow her to kill for longer, only repurposing it and honing it into her main art and new identity after disowning the blade. While she is incredibly skilled in the use of Kido as Retsu Unohana, she is undoubtedly the most skilled sword fighter in all of Bleach as Yachiru Unohana, and a peer of the likes of Tenjiro in the healing arts as both, almost as though healing is the string that tethers the two together. While we see her healing friend and foe throughout the series to sustain them as Retsu, our only seen example of her combat healing is in her fight with Kenpachi, where she continuously pushes him to the brink of death, where on that edge he releases more and more of his latent subconsciously suppressed power, and Yachiru heals him back to perfect condition to continue the fight. With her healing being so masterful and subtle, Kenpachi passes out and wakes back up in the middle of battle without noticing what's happening. In their initial meeting, both Kenpachi and Yachiru were scouring the Rukongai, looking for something strong enough to give them a real fight when they eventually crossed paths. Kenpachi a mere child sitting atop a mountain of corpses he had slain himself. One might even consider him the peak of a mountain befitting of Unohana's deadliness. Two forces of nature built upon mountains of bodies, they clashed. They were both each other's strongest opponent they had ever faced up to that point, but in the end, the one to end up fatally wounded was Yachiru, having been stabbed directly in the chest by the small child. Threatened by the prospect of losing his greatest foe in the fight he enjoyed the most, Zaraki began to subconsciously limit himself to Yachiru's level to continue to enjoy the fight. That Kenpachi had to limit himself to her level to continue fighting was a colossal failure on her part, a great dishonor to her title as Kenpachi, and her gravest sin. In short, she felt she wasn't good enough, and her inability to keep up with Zaraki led to her stunting the growth of the one and only person fit to replace her. Basically, Kenpachi suffers a similar depression as Saitama of One Punch Man, or Yujiro Hanma of Grappler Baki. The depression of being peerless, being unable to test yourself and experience a challenge. While Yujiro creates Baki in hopes that his own genetics can produce a fighter to rival him, and Saitama simply keeps slamming his head against the same metaphorical wall in hopes that he might one day break through, that he'll find a worthy opponent, Zaraki's answer was to limit himself subconsciously, hence why he could fight to his limits and enjoy a battle, yet lose to Soul Society Ichigo in one instance and defeat Neutra in the next with no discernible improvement. And Yachiru felt responsible for that. Yachiru claims to be stronger than anyone in the strongest version of the Gotei 13, except for Kenpachi, which left her victory over him an utter disgrace, hollow, void of any joy, and her greatest regret. Side tangent, I don't know if she's including Yamamoto in that strongest statement and the Kenpachi title, but if so, that's cracked. Anyway, at some point after this clash, she resigns as the 13th Division Captain, and instead becomes the 4th Division Captain after her reinvention into Retsu, with Kenpachi admiring the woman she was and the strength she had all the while, fighting his way through the Rukongai until becoming a Kenpachi himself. From there on, while a first-time reader may mistake her first appearance in the series as a bland, nurturing mother healer type, rereads or shrewd readers may notice she was the only one that suspected something about Aizen's death, from suspecting Agigai's use to going with Isane to Central 46, to even suspecting him through the complete hypnosis of Kyoka Soigetsu due to her sharp wit and thorough examination. She seemed like a sharp woman, and knowing with context that she's basically only second to Old Man Yama at this point, it makes sense that she would be. But the rest of the arc portrays her as this healing motherly type, building towards the subversion of expectation in her final arc. Even beyond that in Hueco Munda and Fake Karakura, she just heals ally and enemy alike, never engaging in battle like a strong-willed pacifist. Like some Hacksaw Ridge type shit, but when she realizes Ichigo hasn't seen Aizen's Kyoka Soigetsu, and realizes he's got a legit shot of beating Aizen, she seems different. We see it every now and then throughout, but definitely here, we see a sharpness of the features more befitting of what we come to see 2 arcs later. She goes on to help with the healing efforts, particularly of note with the Vizards, whom she still considers allies, and that's it for her actions. We have a couple of interesting moments throughout the series of her best understanding Yamamoto, as they have been together for 1,000+ years, but the war arc is when all this character building and foreshadowing comes to fruition. 2 things worth noting before diving into her reveal as Yachiru is that she was one of the few people that seemed to fully grasp how dangerous Yamamoto's Bankai truly was, and Yamamoto ordered Squad 4 to remain in their barracks. While the order was likely to prevent the healer squad from being damaged, causing the Gote 13 to lose their white mage, it's possible that Yamamoto feared Retsu's being on the battlefield as it might result in the return of Yachiru given the circumstances. Not only would this be bad in that Yachiru may die in battle, leaving Kenpachi basically forever sealed, as Yachiru was uniquely poised to be able to undo that seal due to their history, her strength, and her healing, but Yachiru's possible death would also cost the Soul Society their 2 oldest captains if he should pass as well. The worst possible outcome is honestly if she didn't take up the blade again though, as Yachiru is easily strong enough to wipe out any Sternritter below Schutzstaffel level without even needing to resort to Bankai. And while I still don't think she's Schutzstaffel level with her Bankai, she'd probably make a significant impact against them when aided by the likes of some of the other higher-end captains. But they'd lose all that if Retsu refused to fight back. We later get her meeting with her old healing master, Tenjiro, who explains that her healing won't be enough for those wounded. He also starts the first Kenpachi arc by referring to her as, quote, Retsu, and saying that she has other responsibilities to tend to in place of healing. Now take note of the reactions here. She furrows her brow, Shunsui side glances her. At this point, we know something's up. Finally, Shunsui has the 2 Kenpachi settle the score, and Unohana is revealed to be the first Kenpachi. Isane gets a letter likely detailing how she would perish during the final encounter, and Kenpachi leaves Yachiru Kusajishi, his lieutenant, his eye patch as a sign that this'll be the toughest fight he's ever had. The 2 captains, the 2 criminals, meet in the Muken, and Yachiru is finally unleashed again, for the final time. They clash, and Kenpachi is slaughtered effortlessly countless times, the gap between them becoming more evident with each clash. She calls no eye patch Kenpachi weak, she attacks with hidden daggers as an underhanded trick, she berates him for only using one hand, and she lashes out at him when he scorns her for the cheap dagger attack. Kenpachi thinks she's no longer the woman he admired if she resorts to something like that, but she retorts that not only should he not be admiring an enemy during a battle, but as a child he was so much stronger she wasn't able to pull cheap tricks. With this realization, Yachiru executes him for the first time. She heals him, and they continue where they left off, her pushing him to unleash his true power each time. Finally, Kenpachi's power grows so great that even without using his Shikai, he's powerful enough to warrant Yachiru releasing Minazuki. Not her Shikai, Flesh Drop's Gorge, the flying manta ray that heals whatever it swallows. Not Retsu's power. Kenpachi's power is so immense that with an unreleased Zanpakuto, Yachiru must resort to using her true power, her Bankai, Minazuki, all things end. With the whole area of the Muken around them surrounded by a thick, viscous, blood-like liquid, they fight. Unohana's blade has been coated in this substance, making her attacks stronger, faster, sharper, and longer. As Kenpachi begins to surpass even that, Yachiru begins to feel as though it was her destiny to learn how to heal to unlock Kenpachi's true potential, and eventually, her era as the one true Kenpachi ends, and she is felled by the only man to ever truly bring her joy. Kenpachi weeps at the loss, but in having achieved his original power, he finally opens his heart to his Zanpakuto and unlocks his Shikai, Nozarashi. Her sword nurtured him, and his sword devoured her. Alright guys, that's it for this overview of Yachiru Unohana. What do you guys think of Unohana? She's probably one of my favorite characters in Bleach, and while I do think she's a controversial figure in terms of how strong she really is, in terms of character writing, I think she's one of Kubo's best written characters, especially her tragic ending. Did you guys learn anything in this video? I understand that a lot of new fans started watching Bleach with the new anime release, and some may not even have gone back to watch the original anime or read the manga, and for even those of you that have watched all of the anime, some of the details from the manga may not have translated. So let me know if you guys learned anything and what you guys think about Yachiru Unohana in the comments down below. If you enjoyed, be sure to check out the Discord where you guys can talk to each other and me about all the awesome Bleach stuff you can think of. I've been Red Fox, the prisoner of the YouTube Communist Party, and this has been Yachiru Unohana Explained. Thanks for watching. Peace.